So it's been more than a year since I first introduced the Next 17 on the channel. Basically, it's a guy who is producing his own figures as if Kenner kind of went on and kept making figures after they stopped. So we have new characters, new versions of old characters, and things like that, done in the vintage Kenner style is the idea. I first talked to you about the Next 17 when he released this Effant Mon figure. This is, of course, Jabba's head of security in the palace, and I was pretty impressed with this figure. It's hefty, made out of nice rubbery plastic, and actually made in a factory and not 3D printed or anything like that. So I think this fits in pretty well with a Kenner display. He also came out with a couple variants on this. We have a Sith version, which I think is pretty funny. It's got red eyes and some Sith markings, I guess. And he also made a desert cloak version. If you want a lighter color cloak, you can get that as well. But this is kind of the first time that we're seeing a full wave of new characters. This is what he's calling Wave 2. And as you can see, we have basically 3 humans and 3 monsters, for lack of a better word. On the left, this is Jakeel. This is Tanus Spijek, and both of these guys are obscure background Jabba's Palace characters, so you naturally will know that these are, right up my alley for sure. We've got a baby Wampa, and then we have Luke, sort of in a full-on Jedi Master, in his full robes, based on I guess a Kenner prototype of what Luke would look like when he was a full Jedi Master. I'll talk more about that in a minute when we look at these. We've got a young Obi-Wan there, sort of envisioning how he might have looked like when he was in the Clone Wars, except instead of looking like Ewan McGregor, of course, because this is the original trilogy version, he has him look like a young Alec Guinness. And then we also have basically the same Obi-Wan that was in A New Hope, but with his hood up, and with sculpted robes as opposed to the vinyl ones that we got from Kenner. So that's what we're going to look at today. I just want to take a closer look at each of these in turn and then give you my thoughts. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so these 2 guys right here are probably my favorites, if only because, well, obviously they're Jabba's Palace related, but also I really like the way they've been sculpted here. They do look, I think, credibly like they could be Kenner figures. Human figures are going to be a little bit more divisive, I think. People have strong opinions about what a particular figure should look like, what an actor should look like when transformed into the Kenner style, that kind of thing. But I think we can agree that these are pretty good looking. So this is Jakeel again. He's kind of based, his design, original design, was based, I guess, on a warthog. This guy has a separate little belt here that I think, so I'm not entirely sure if this is removable. It looks like it should be, but I'm not really going to tempt fate because it fits on there so nicely right now. And it doesn't flop around or anything. Yeah, it does seem to be oh, there it goes. It is movable and probably removable, but I'm not gonna try. He also comes with a sort of simple dagger, rubbery dagger that you could take out if you want. Of course, it goes in either hand. And naturally they are articulated in the same way that any Kenner figure would be, but they do have kind of that nice rubbery feel. I don't know how to explain it, but you can sort of hear the joints make a noise as they turn in a way that they wouldn't if this was just like hard plastic or 3D printed resin or something like that. So, and also if we look at the hands, for example, you can see that there's some give there as I put the weapon in. Whereas if you try to do that with a lot of hard plastic or 3D printed figures, they could very well break. So it does feel a lot more like a vintage figure might. They aren't quite constructed in the same way that vintage figures are, in that vintage Kenner figures are hollow, generally in the chest area here, and they're sonic welded together around the limbs, whereas this is a solid piece of plastic as far as I can tell, but that's not really a huge deal. So this guy appears to have been kind of modeled after a sloth, kind of have a Sid from Ice Age vibe going on there. And he comes with a mace. Not really sure where that idea came from. You know, if this weapon actually has any connection to this character at all, I can't really say. But looks all right. You know, it gives him something to hold. These guys appear to have the same legs, I think, shared between them, which I think, you know, makes some sense. They're very similar characters in many ways. Oh, and in fact, I think the arms are the same as well, now that I look at them. Yeah. So you can see they're painted differently, of course, but in some sense, these are like variants of one figure. But anyway, I really like these. I would definitely get these, you know, even if I hadn't been sent these to review, I would have picked these up for my own Jabba display. Moving right along, we have the Baby Wampa, which is a funny concept, to be sure. It's quite a small figure, so, you know, as you can see, about half the size. Right around the size, a little bit bigger than Yoda, original, you know, vintage Yoda would be. But still got the articulation. Comes with a little bone that he can carry. I like the way they've done the legs. They may look a little strange, you know, they've got a little weird angle here, but that's exactly the same way that the legs on the vintage Wampa were made. So, yeah, it seems appropriate. I will say, if we compare the faces here, the nose is about the same. The mouth, they've painted pink on the baby, and I think that may be messing with the likeness a little bit. Like, it doesn't look as much like it, the original Wampa figure as it could. And also the eyes on the original Wampa are kind of triangular, whereas they're circular here. But maybe they're trying to make him look a little cuter, so that may make some sense there. Of course, my Wampa is fairly yellowed, because this is an original one, whereas this guy is nice and white. And I will also say, you know, because he's solid, and this Wampa is very hollow, they feel similar weight. I mean, I guess this is heavier. The actual Wampa is heavier, but not by as much as you might think. One thing I should mention, when I got this figure, the horns were up like this, as if they were, you know, actual horns instead of, I guess, tusks is what they actually are, right? And that's not a huge deal, except that when I was trying to move this one back, just like I did on this side, it kind of broke off. It seems like it was maybe glued inside there or something, or maybe the paint had hardened onto it or something. I don't know, but I had to take some super glue and glue that one back in place, so I can't move it anymore. Not a big deal. It's not like you need to move the tusks or anything, but it's something to keep in mind. I wonder if the Chinese factory kind of misunderstood how this was supposed to be and thought they should be pointing up, which is, I guess, is an understandable mistake, but still. Pretty cute little character, though. Finally, we have the 3 human figures. We've got 2 versions of Obi-Wan and 1 of Luke. One thing you may notice if you look at these figures closely is that they all have exactly the same bodies from the neck down. They are the same figure. As far as I can tell, they've just been repainted. But that's actually kind of a clever solution to this. I mean, the fact of the matter is that making this kind of figure, especially for just one person, as is the case with the next 17, is a hugely expensive undertaking. You have to make metal molds, and you really want to make sure you get the most out of them. So that's one reason why, you know, he probably wanted to start making variants like we saw with this one, or reusing some parts like we saw with these guys. with the reused limbs. So, that's not really a problem. But just thought I should mention it. We can look at the younger Obi-Wan more closely here. We can see the head sculpt, which I think is pretty good. Looks like a youngish Alec Guinness. I don't really have any problems with that. Mine seems to have a little bit of problem with the eye paint, though. Like there's a decal that got misapplied somehow, so that this his left eye is a little weird looking. It's not really visible at a normal viewing distance, though, so I wouldn't make too big of a deal out of it. If we compare, though, with this one, I think you can tell that this one has a bit more like the normal Kenner eye style, and they're both the same. Looking at this hooded one is interesting because, as you know, of course, Kenner never really went back and revamped the Obi-Wan figure, not too surprisingly, but we were left with the vinyl-caped Obi-Wan, the vinyl-caped Darth Vader for a long time, and they did look a little bit on the old-fashioned side, I guess, although, that's part of their charm, too. But it is interesting to think about how they might have looked if they decided to sort of re-examine this figure later on and make it into a fully molded, fully sculpted figure. Finally, if we want to look at Luke here, this is supposed to be a Jedi Master Luke, a little bit of an older and wiser Luke than we saw in the actual original trilogy, but interesting to think of what it would be like. He's got these tan color robes, and of course his hand here has been painted black to evoke his robot hand. It comes with a green lightsaber in the the vintage Kenner style. And really the thing I imagine that most people are going to be interested in is the face sculpt and paint. So let's go ahead and look at that. So it does seem to be pretty well sculpted and painted. It's clean lines on the eyes and everything. I do think that the hair color could be a little lighter. It seems almost like a reddish brown color. And if we compare it with the Kenner one, I would have preferred to see something like this color, I think. But I do think that the sculpt for the hair is much closer than what we got on this. I don't know where they came up with this on the Kenner figure. It doesn't really look anything like Mark Hamill in the film, but this pretty much does, so pretty impressed with that. Personally, I probably would not have bought this figure or the Obi-Wans for my collection, just because I obviously tend to focus on Jabba's palace, first of all, but I also kind of focus on monsters and, aliens and things like that. But if this is the kind of thing you're interested in, I see no reason why you wouldn't like this. It seems to be high quality. Oh, I also forgot to mention that you get these little backdrops. If you order the full set, I guess you get 2 of these. I'm not really sure which way these are supposed to go, but kind of a Death Star type backdrop, and it says the next 17 on the back. So that's wave 2 of the next 17 figures. These are shipping now to customers and can be ordered on the website, next17.com, and they're also taking pre-orders for variants on these figures, as I understand it. So they've got, in the same vein as this one here, the Sith version of Effant Mon, they're going to be having Sith versions of Obi-Wan and Luke, and even Jaquil over here, I believe. They're also going to be having versions of the baby Wampa. They've got a black one, a glow-in-the-dark one, and like a bloodthirsty one with some blood stains around its mouth and stuff. It's pretty funny. In addition, they're going to be having Force Ghost or hologram, rather, versions of Luke and of Obi-Wan, so you could have like a Jabba's Palace hologram version of this Luke figure if you wanted. Anyway, more information is available on the website, as I said, and you can find that in the video description. Let me know what you think of these figures, and thanks very much for watching. Like all my videos, this one was brought to you with the help of my Patreon supporters, including these Palace VIPs, Angelica Brady and Jesper Murtu. I really appreciate your support, everyone.
And if you'd like to help support the channel yourself, you can visit the link in the video description to see how you can do it for as little as $1 a month.